Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard with Senior Living Smart, and today it's my pleasure to welcome Kelly Myers, co-founder of KJB Sales Consulting, to the podcast. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Debbie. How are you today?
Doing great. I have been looking forward to having you on and talking about your book. And let's talk a little bit about what got you here. And we were talking before about being on the provider side and starting at a single community and working up to the ranks until you finally had that coveted national kind of position, and then making the leap to go out on your own. And I'm sure it's to make a difference in a broader sense than just impacting one company. So I'd just love to know a little bit about your journey here and really what motivates you every day.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. It's been interesting, right? I guess we're probably pretty close to the 2 year mark at KJB. And it's a bit of a funny story. The ladies, Jessica Fopp and Bridget Specht, who are my business partners at KJB, we would often talk about if we were to leave Sunrise, what would we do next? And wouldn't it be great, right? It's that, wouldn't it be great if we could do our own consulting company? And wouldn't it be great if we could really take everything that we've learned and spread it right across to
Right.
other organizations? And probably nothing that we ever actually thought we would do until the opportunity presented itself. And we all left Sunrise right around the same time. And so it was this rare opportunity, right? With people that you really trust, people who we were all on the same team for well over a decade and watched each other sort of grow in the roles that we had. And so to truly understand like the skills that your business partners have and being able to put that in a framework where we can give back. And I think we appreciate how much infrastructure that we had at Sunrise. A lot, right, of senior living companies are not the big Brookdales and they're not the big Sunrise community or organizations. And the infrastructure that we had there, we didn't really know it at the time because it was all we knew. It was just made it easier, right, for us to make sure that the sales teams had what they needed to do the best job that they can. And to have that opportunity to take that to smaller organizations who don't have, won't have, don't need, quite frankly, that level of infrastructure has really been a lot of fun for us. We've met so many new people and we've had lots of great conversations, both with companies like yours, Debbie, and also with all of the other sort of senior living adjacent companies that are out there that support the senior living industry.
Yeah. No, it's great to be able to take all that experience and then figure out how can I make this kind of affordable and accessible for everybody so it's not just the big companies that have the advantage, but how do we really level the playing field? And at the end of the day, how do just we create a better experience for the prospect?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's what it's all about. We joke, right? We joke like we're gonna try to make it a little bit easier for prospective residents and their families to do something really hard, and we're gonna do it like one salesperson at a time. And it feels like
Yeah.
that sometimes, right? It feels if you can just help somebody look at something just a little bit differently, how much that could change the whole customer experience as they're making a decision that they never wanted to make.
So that's really what you're talking about in your book. It's really the more you close. And it's that kind of deeper discovery and how we speak differently to prospects than just trying to get to the basics of are you qualified and are you going to move in the next 30 days?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think sometimes, or I guess maybe I could say I know a lot of times that as sales professionals in their communities are working with families, there's so much going on behind the closed door, right? Where they're doing their lead nurturing, lead based management, making all of those call outs, trying to craft really effective emails. And nobody really gets to see that side of the work. And sadly, right, sometimes I think all we do talk about are the people who are ready to advance to a close. And we do need to do that, right? It's the job of the salesperson to close sales. That's their job description. But with that, I think sometimes as an industry, we are so focused on what's going on right now, like how many move-ins right now, how many move-ins this week, how many move-ins next week, how many move-ins this week, and that we forget the whole other part of the job, which is that behind the door, really hard work that sales professionals do. And it creates a mindset that I am successful by just talking about what we're doing right now and today and who's moving in this week. And short changes, right? All of the things they had to do to get to that week, where they are going to close a sale and get a move in. And I don't think that necessarily, right? Nobody means when they ask the question about how many move-ins do you have this week? What's your pipeline look for the month? Nobody asks that question and means we don't care about the hundreds of other people that you're talking to right now. But when that's all you talk about, right, it creates this feeling that I need to find opportunities for leads to find me. They're going to move in right away, and not really celebrating all of the work that has to go on before that. And then that can create that hamster wheel where you're moving in people who have a much higher sense of urgency, a much higher need level of care, and the length of stay may not be as long as some of those ones that if you could have turned some of your attention to those opportunities, then you'd get, sure, right? People who need to move in this week, that's great. We want those people too. But you also have this other sort of flow of leads coming through your sales funnel that you've been working with for maybe months, in independent living, maybe years.
Yeah, and I think that there's definitely a lot of studies that show exactly that same hamster wheel that I feel like we've been on for years, really. And it's about whether it was Welcome Home or Align, they talked about the shorter the sales cycle, the shorter the length of stay. And they specifically called out the third-party aggregator leads that typically move in under 30 days, but they had the highest move out within the first 12 months. And then there was another one that actually broke down the number of days that it took somebody to get through their decision cycle, and they compared it to the length of stay. And the longer the nurturing, it actually gave up to a double the number of days that they were with you. So obviously that's double the revenue, that's more stability, it's getting people that aren't as acute, you've got less risk. And those are really the right move-ins. So it's how do you focus on both things simultaneously? You do need the move-ins for today. You definitely need those, but you also need, I love that book, The Blue Ocean. I don't know whether you've ever read The Blue Ocean Strategy, but I love that. When you think about it, the red ocean is those leads that come in urgent, a lot of them from the aggregators, and they're shared with everybody. And it's like piranhas feeding on this morsel of a lead. Meanwhile, there's a whole blue ocean out there, much bigger fish that are going to be better. But how do you do both things simultaneously?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? It's like juggling a lot of balls. And it's funny, as you were talking, Deb, I was thinking to myself, you've got these people, right, who really do need to make a decision right now, right? And let's call right now, meaning between 7 and 14 days, they've got to make a decision. Maybe they've got a loved one in a hospital setting, they need to be discharged, or in a skilled nursing setting, they need to be discharged, or whatever the case is, right? And we want to make sure that those professional referral sources understand that we can manage that. We can manage them moving quickly. We can manage certain levels of care based on the organization for which you work with. And that, yes, of course, we want to be here for the customer when they need us. And there are customers, right, who need us right now. But then to your point, right, there's other customers that maybe they're not quite ready to need us, but they know something's coming, or they feel like they want to be invested and really understand our industry. Let's face it, right? Nobody really knows much about senior living until they actually need to start looking for senior living. And so it's almost as if we have to make sure that when we're talking to folks who are really early in their decision-making process, that we are speaking to them in a language that they understand. And so what I mean by that is that we don't say, hi, are you looking for AL, IL, or memory care? I'm not really sure what any of those things mean, except for memory care. That one I've got, but I'm not
I
sure.
know I don't want it.
And I don't want that, because my mom's going to be locked behind a door. I like that one, right? Locked unit. But when you think about that, it's like we have to break some of these really bad habits of talking in jargon, because it's really hard to keep people engaged through a longer sales decision-making process when we're not speaking to them in a language that they really understand, and we're not staying aligned with where they are in the buying process. I think an odd thing to say, maybe for a salesperson to say, that whole sense of let's create a sense of urgency for someone. To me, I think that just says, let's just try to get somebody to move in on my timeline and not their timeline. And there are certainly situations, right, where people are in denial, and we're gonna try really hard, right, to share with them, here are the things that you shared with me about your mom. I know that these are the things that you're most worried about. And it might be time, right, to give a little harder nudge, right? Like, it's okay to make a really difficult decision, right? It's okay to do that. But sometimes we do those same things with people who are not looking to move in right now, whether we think they need to move in right now or not. That's not where they are. And if we are not in alignment with where they are, then not only are we going to lose that sale, we're going to lose that customer as we try to nurture them through the process. Quite frankly, that person may never get to experience senior living ever, right? Their
Right.
experience may have been one that says, I was looking for just one good reason to not do this. And thank you very much, because you've just served that up for me by not listening, by not making me feel like it's okay for me to think through the process. It's okay for me to fully understand things. It's okay that maybe right now we're just going to do some private duty at home, right? Those things are not reasons to abandon a potential lead, but we do that sometimes. And then it feels my needs are not very important to you right now. And so I think we have to be really careful about that. And it's a balancing act for sure. Time is a finite situation, and you have to try to find time to do both, helping those people who do need to make a decision right now and the people who are going to make a decision down the road, but they're not going to be the move-in you get celebrated for this month. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that the whole kind of construct of how we think about prospects is really creates a lot of these scenarios, right? We go in and we have to say, are they hot, warm, or cold?
Yeah.
Okay, they're not hot, warm, or cold. They are people in very difficult circumstances that are trying to learn about an industry they don't know anything about. It's very emotional. It's very expensive. We're asking them to do the hardest thing that they could possibly have to do, and sometimes in crisis and sometimes quickly. And so by first of all defining them and forcing them into a category,
Yeah.
that then dictates how we're going to engage with them. And it's just, it's around a sense of urgency or timing. But I think right off the bat, a lot of times the structure of how we're engaging, and that comes from corporate, right? We're going to set up the CRM to say, you have to say if they're hot, warm, or cold. There's got to be these steps. Here's what the discovery questions you have to ask. But when you look at a lot of those discovery questions, they're not for the benefit of the prospect, to get to really know and understand and empathize so you can help and be a resource. It's really a qualification list for the salesperson and for the brand of, have you qualified to have time with me or not?
Yeah, no, I think you're right on there, Debbie. And it creates a culture. It creates a culture within a certain organization that whether they mean it or not, likely most don't mean this. The most important things are the things that you are doing today that will turn into a move-in tomorrow. Even though we're taking a look at, to your point, CRMs that have how many uncompleted activities do you have? How many leads or opportunities do you have in the CRM that don't have a planned next step? Those are in there, and they're in there for a really good reason. But you really have to try to help that sales professional understand, how do I balance my time, and how do I set a pace that means everybody here who had the courage to reach out to us, regardless of where they came from, is important to me. And one of the things that we talk about a little bit in the book, Debbie, is senior living today, every person who might be listening to this podcast right now works in a community or knows a community that all has great care. We'll do your laundry. We have fantastic programming. We go on bus trips. We have really good food. We have things internally. We've got physical therapists that come into the building. The building is pretty. The building is clean, right? Regardless of which organization you may work for or which community you may work for, we all effectively have the same things. Everybody's got the exact same things. And creating differentiation in your community compared to the 3 to 5 communities that your prospective resident might be looking at is really pretty hard. And to try to stand out because of the services and the programs that you have, great reputation, you have to go beyond all that, because that's table stakes, right? That everybody has that. And it's funny, I was talking with somebody the other day, and what we were talking about was, it's what if the only thing you had to do to differentiate yourself was to ensure that the quality of the conversation you were having was one where, when the prospective resident or their family got off the phone, left your building, said, I really mattered to them. My situation mattered. They know that I've been hesitant to come in for a tour, but we spent 15, 20 minutes on the phone really talking about the things that my mother loves to do. the things that she misses, that she can't do any longer. And I think behavior and the way that we treat people is the new differentiator. And when we're rushed to qualify, to find out, right, how much money do you have, what is wrong with you, so we can make sure that our community can actually take care of you, and when can you move in, that doesn't necessarily make somebody feel like you really understand my situation.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like I need to clear some hurdles in order for you to be interested in helping me and my loved one consider this as a potential next step for us.
Yeah, I love that thought of what if the differentiation was just the feeling that you got that you mattered and that somebody cared. And so your background is in social work. And so
It
I'm
is.
sure a lot of your training in empathy and
Yeah.
in digging a little bit deeper and having those different conversations is probably something that, you're really comfortable with. But now you're on the kind of the training coaching side. So how do you impart some of those skills to get people to feel comfortable asking those next questions instead of just the
Right.
superficial questions?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because words like curiosity and empathy, sometimes I think they feel like things you just naturally are, and maybe you're not, right? Maybe I'll use myself as an example, right? I took one of those empathy tests once, and my empathy score was not awesome. It was pretty low, and it was interesting because others around me are like, "Oh my gosh, that doesn't even make sense." And in my mind, it's my lean was towards problem solving. So my lean was not necessarily in sitting in where that person is in the moment. My my natural DNA is, okay, let's figure out how we can fix this. And being aware of what you are doing to help someone, how does that show up to that other person? And so that's something I've always had to be cognizant of. Of course I understand, right? I am empathetic, but my nature is we can fix this. Let's just figure this out. And so I had to learn to be more patient. I had to learn that it's okay to not solve or try to solve other people's problems. And same with curiosity. I think curiosity is similar in regards to the more questions you start to ask people, the more answers you may later have to give people. And what if I don't know the answers to those questions? What if I go down a path and I'm asking some really great questions and I'm interested, I'm tuned in, I want to know more about your mom? But what if something I learn is not something that we can actually manage? So it does take a bit of courage, right, to
Yeah.
be, I think, empathetic. And it takes a little bit of courage to be curious if you really think about what could be on the other side of that. And one of the things that we certainly practiced, right, in my former role with Sunrise, very big part of our company now is coaching. And,
Yeah.
and it's funny, Deb, you too, Debbie, could probably think about the word coaching means something different, maybe to every organization, but also to different people. And if you think about the word coaching and how it has, at least for me, been in the senior living industry, coaching for a long time meant something bad. A coaching conversation was you did something wrong and we're not going to have a conversation. And instead of calling it a critical conversation or a difficult conversation, we're going to call it a coaching conversation because that feels better to everybody.
Right.
In fact, we did a coaching training for some folks and a company. And one of the things that we had to talk about was, can we call it coaching? Because in their company, coaching meant a different kind of difficult conversation, right?
Yeah.
Not let's improve your skills, like what coaching means to the greater world. But I think through really understanding, right, where people's needs, where they need to maybe be a little better at asking more questions. They need to be a little better at listening to the answer before they ask another question and not so hung up on thinking of their next questions that they miss the answer to the first question that they asked. And so we really push hard on organizations who are going to hire us to do some training to also consider thinking about the coaching process of this and how can we help your regional directors of sales really understand that training is an event, a very important event, but training is an event. And you probably do some role playing in the training. And then if you don't have a coaching culture on your sales team, you likely they're never practicing what they've learned again until they're on the phone with the customer or until they're doing a tour with customers. So we've left people to practice on our customers versus really trying to gin up those skills in a way that allows us to be in a really safe environment and practice asking more questions, practice listening, practice thinking through how, when somebody comes to your community, which department coordinator should they be spending time with? Because it shouldn't all be with you as a salesperson. But there are skills that I think sometimes we think, oh, of course, they're a salesperson, they have that. Of course, they know how to ask good questions. Of course, they're good listeners. Of course, they're empathetic. Of course, they're curious. Maybe not, but everybody can be a little more of all those things if we practice. So I don't know if that answers the question that you asked. I got on a little tangent there for a minute.
No, it was good. I think that training without coaching, I remember this analogy that I had when I was going through some sales training program, and they talked about like a fish tank that gets cloudy and no one's cleaning it, and the fish are swimming more slowly and things aren't going well. And then you scoop them up and you put them in this new tank, and it's got all the greatest filters, and you feed them all the right fish and vitamins and everything else. And that's what we do when we take people to training. We take them out of an environment that's very cloudy, murky. It's messy in the community, lots of distractions. We take them away for a few days. We feed them up good. We put them in this new fish tank with people. And then if we just drop them back into the same fish tank that they came out of, the coaching really is around keeping that tank clean, right? So that the salesperson can be successful in the same environment. Because it's easy to do it in a different environment outside of all the distractions. But how do you bring it back into the community and help them be successful?
No doubt, because they're still juggling all those balls, right? And so I went to training. I'm super excited to go back. I've got my pre-call plans here. I actually know what kind of questions I'm going to start with. And then life happens, right? And then I've got my door closed in my office and I'm ready to make these phone calls that I prepared. Maybe I even got to prepare those when I was at the training, and then knock, right, happens on the door. And then all of these things, right? The community is a living, breathing thing. It's not like you can just say, I'm now going to go do my work and please don't bother me, because that's not reality in a senior living community. Right. And so you're right, Deb, unless you have to purposefully create situations where on a regular cadence, your sales professionals can practice craft, right? They can practice overcoming objections. They can practice asking some really difficult questions. They can practice just things like, I asked a bunch of good questions. I've got a lot of good information here. How do I summarize this in a way to show the customer, here's what I heard? Right? Here's what I hear you saying, which does a couple of things for us, right? One, you matter, I listened. Okay, so that's a nice direct correlation there. Two, when you summarize that back to them, oftentimes that can be the moment when someone is, wow, I shared a lot, didn't I? And that, right, that creates a compelling reason to move forward in the process. And I think that doing that is hard. Right? Doing that is very hard. Being patient as a salesperson is hard in general. It follows that whole like slow down to go fast. That's hard, right? And I think too, people are really proud of their communities. They're really proud of what they can offer. They know 60 to 100 people living there whose lives have all been improved. And so for us, it's like, we can help. We're so excited you're here today. We want to figure this out. You're going to love it when you live here. Isn't it beautiful? We got great food. Not necessarily taking a beat to say, this person is zero excited to be here. This person sat in the car for 10 minutes because they weren't sure they wanted to come in the door. This person dialed your phone number or went on your website 15 times before they actually pressed the, yes, I want to schedule a tour button. They don't have the same feelings we do. They don't have those feelings at all because they don't know. We know because we've seen it time and time and time again. They don't know. And so I do think it's coaching to that ability to just be in the moment with someone. And it's okay to not get every question answered on the first phone call, but let's get important ones. Let's ask them important questions. So we do build a good reason for them to want to take that next step.
Yeah, it's a lot. What do you think has to change? Because I feel like marketing's like the Jetsons, like we've got widgets and AI and we've got automation, we have all this. And yet when I think about sales and I listen to mystery shop calls, our clients have CallRail and I'll sometimes get on and start listening to them. And I swear I just went back 30 years to the same things that I was hearing a long time ago. And it's like the Flintstones. So how do you think like the structure of sales has to change to deal with just the sheer volume of leads that are coming in and really the changing expectations of today's leading boomer generation?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Deb. And in a lot of ways, right, marketing has catapulted itself over these last 5. You think about things that your company is doing for senior living companies right now. 5 years ago, we weren't even talking about those things. 5 years ago, we thought about 5, 7 years ago, marketing was just an event, or marketing was creating flyers, or marketing was making sure on our websites that we had a big enough gate in front of the website that you had to fill in all of your information because we want your information. We don't really care that you're on here to get information. We care that you're on here. We want your information. And
Right.
how good was the gate that they had to fill out before they actually
Right.
got entree into the website to maybe learn something? We're like, no, you don't want to give us that? Too bad for you. You're
Yep.
not going to get to learn anything from us today. And you think that's real. I can
Yeah.
remember personally having conversations about the gate. So that's a real thing. But what's happened with marketing coming so far is there's no gate, which is a good thing unless you don't have the right sort of setup in your sales department to meet all of those customers' needs. And the wider the gate, the wider the needs are going to be, wider the timeframes are going to be. And so it's funny, my first senior living job was with Marriott Senior Living, and I started that role on November 15th, I believe. Our sales department at that time was myself, who did external sales 3 days a week, and then internal sales 2 days a week because my partner actually needed a day off or two. And my partner did internal sales only.
Yep.
Okay. And we covered weekends, so we shared. Everybody, we got to be manager on duty back in those days. It wasn't
Oh,
necessarily.
yeah.
Now it's a bad word, right? You can't be manager on duty. Don't tell anybody that's what you're doing. That was 1999. People listening to this podcast, I suspect it's not that much, right? I do think that we've gotten to some places where you do actually have people dedicated to only outside business development, referral generation, but it's not a lot different. Oftentimes you've got one salesperson, you may have one support person, your maybe bench strength person, somebody starting out in a more junior role. And maybe if you're lucky, you've got somebody who's doing the bulk of your business development. But when you think about the lead flow change, like it's massive. It's massive. It used to feel a bit like, how did I describe it the other day? So previous, let's just say 7 years ago, we'll pick that up. Being a sales professional, right, was like being an outfielder. Okay. You're in the outfield of a baseball game and balls are coming at you. And you're going to probably catch 1 or 2 out of every 4 balls. Okay. It's coming at you. You're out there. You've got this big view. You've got some balls coming at you and you can probably catch 25 to 50% of them. Now it's like dodgeball. Okay.
Yes.
Now marketing has the ball and you've got your one salesperson, maybe a second salesperson if you're lucky, maybe like a third person that might be your move-in coordinator. And now marketing is throwing 100 balls at you an hour. And you're just trying not to get hit by the ball. You're just trying to stay up, right? And that it's good that so many more people understand that senior living is a good thing and that customers are there. They can reach out earlier in the process. They don't have to wait until a professional says she can't go home. You got to figure out something to do. But we do, I think, as an industry, have to think about how do you invest in staffing your sales department in a way that can meet the needs of all of the kinds of customers that are coming to you. And so, right, some companies use call centers. I think that's great. Some companies have their own call center. I think that's great. And that does alleviate some of the burden on the salesperson. Many companies have using the chat bot, the VSA.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To just a little story about that, Deb. I think I might have told you this before. So we do some mystery shopping at KJB for skill gap analysis. We're not a mystery shop company. It's not what we do. But we do it for skill gap analysis, right?
Yep.
When someone's trying to figure out where maybe in their training people aren't as strong as they need to be. I don't know, let's say we've done 50 mystery shops in the last 12 months. Almost always, unless it's specifically asked for us to call the community, almost always we come through the website because we want to be able to share the entire journey, right? Through the website all the way through to several weeks after for follow-up. I would say, not at all an exaggeration, of the 50 shops, maybe 5 have actually had voice-to-voice communication with us prior to the tour. And And when I look at that, it's a symptom of great. Okay, I've got somebody up front who's going to catch the ball. They're going to get the tour scheduled. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. I am going to spend my time doing the tour. That's great. Something does need to change, right? Because you can't talk to all of the leads coming through. However, what that short changes right now. So because you did all your scheduling through the website, you haven't talked to a single person at the community. One, my connection to you is not very strong. And so if I do chicken out in the parking lot, that's okay, because I haven't actually talked to anybody yet. Also, you as the sales professional have collected zero information to be able to create a visit that is going to be specifically designed, tailored to what their needs are. And you don't have as strong of a connection because this person's only talked to your website and you don't know anything about them when they show up. So then it's like they get the standard tour. You don't have the opportunity to, again, stand out due to your behavior. Stand out due to the fact that you demonstrated that you are actually genuinely interested in this person. Nope, didn't do. And everybody's doing that. So you're not going to lose out by not calling them necessarily, because nobody else is calling either. I can tell you that. But you also don't have this opportunity to give them an experience that is specifically designed for them and what they're worried about at that moment. I don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I have to say, we see the same thing, right? Our job in marketing is to segment leads into marketing qualified leads versus sales qualified leads, and offer choice to the prospect in terms of how they want to engage with you. If you force everybody into a sales qualified bucket or just push every lead into the CRM, you are playing dodgeball 100%, because everyone's more leads, give me more leads, more at bats means more tours, deposits, and move-ins. Studies have proven that is not true at all. More tours does not actually impact either tours, deposits, or move-ins. And yet there's this mindset of just more. But I think segmenting those leads and allowing people to not just call or force them to give you their contact information, to give you something as simple as pricing, but really respecting people where they are in their journey and allowing them to just get a community brochure, just download an educational guide like a funding guide or a family decision toolkit or something that's going to be helpful and relevant, and not pushing those to sales. Because really the job of marketing is to get the right lead to the sales team at the right time, because they can only really manage the high intent, ready to advance prospects. But we can't lose the pipeline of people who are going to move in 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. And that's where marketing automation and lead nurturing really do that job. But I have a love-hate relationship with the widgets. I get it. I get that you get the conversion. I'm like, would you have gotten the conversion without that? What percentage really are unique, or how much is it really elevated? But we see the same thing. So when we push a tour into a CRM, we do put it on the salesperson's calendar, but we also send them an email and say, please reach out, introduce yourself, build rapport, and do discovery, because just because somebody has an intent to speak with sales does not mean they're qualified. It just means they have a high level of urgency. So do your due diligence. Don't just, because the drop-off rate of a tour that's scheduled on a widget is far higher than a tour drop-off rate of one that has had that voice-to-voice communication and relationship building. But we'll listen to the call rail calls, and the poor person is, I scheduled a tour for this afternoon a couple of days ago, and I got this nice email, and it said someone would be in touch and confirm the tour, and haven't heard from anybody, and is it still okay for me to come in this afternoon? And I'm just like horrified. That what it took for that person to make that commitment and schedule that visit might have been the hardest thing that they did that day, and nobody even bothered to care enough to call and say hello and build rapport and do discovery. And for that person who called and said, is it still okay for me to come? I'm sure there are 10 people that they never got back to that just didn't show up, because if you didn't care enough to call me back to tell me it's okay to come in, then what kind of care are you going to take of my loved one?
100%. I subscribe to the philosophy that your sales process is a window for the customer into what life will be like when they move in. And so think about what you just said, right? So I finally decided to actually give this community my information. I put it in the little checkbox DSA thing. I got my little note back and said, if you'd like to schedule a tour, click here. So I clicked there, and I finally decided on Wednesday is my day. Wednesday is the day I am going to go in and I'm going to talk to these strangers about my mom. Wednesday's the day. Okay, great. So I don't at all hear from anybody. And then I show up and they say, oh, did you have a tour scheduled?
Yep.
Okay. And you're thinking to yourself from a window into what life will be like there. I didn't feel very cared about when I showed up. This happened 2 weeks ago. Jessica was out doing shots, did 5 shots, two of which did not even know she was coming. Didn't know she was coming. After we purposely make sure that we've got, if it's a mystery shop, you're getting your tour scheduled there. Yep. Didn't even know she was coming, and felt like, oh, let me see what I can do to get somebody to talk to you. I think too often, right, we don't understand the impact it makes on a customer when the behavior says to them, you're not really all that important to me.
Yeah. Which
it does, right? Any one of us could think of something really hard that you had to do. You finally took an action to do that hard thing, and then somebody completely dropped the ball. Everybody can think of a situation like that. And you hate to think that's us. Listen, we're selling to somebody what the rest of their life's going to look like. Right. That's no little thing, right? This is what life will be like when you're here. This is what we're selling you. Nobody wants to buy that. Nobody wants to buy. No one wants to pay you $100,000, $200,000 a year to be like, we'll get to you when we get to you. And sometimes that's what I think from a consumer perspective, it feels like that. Like I said earlier, Debbie, everybody's looking for one good reason not to do this.
Yeah.
Everyone is saying, give me a sign. Give me a sign that this is not the right decision for us to make, either because they feel guilty about it, they don't feel ready about it, they don't want to spend the money on it or don't have the money on it. Everybody's looking for one good reason to hightail it the other direction out of there. And I think too often we serve that up every single day. Every day we give reasons by breaking promises to people we did talk to, and we said we were going to send them something, and then we don't send them something. So we break those promises. Yep. We break the promises we made to ourselves. We came out of sales training. We really understand how the enormous responsibility that we have to these people who are looking for something that they don't want and they don't want to spend the money on. They don't trust. And we break those promises, and sometimes unintendedly. Nobody intends for that to happen. Nobody thinks that way. I think I won't keep my promises. Nobody says that. Nobody says, oh, I see the VSA got two tours scheduled and they don't ever show up anyway. Or the third party aggregator, right, scheduled a tour and those people never show up anyway. So I wasn't ready for them. I mean, nobody does that on purpose, right? But unless you have a good in your sales department and you have a really good all hands on deck, which let's face it, that nobody has a good all hands on deck because everybody's got a job, right? Everybody's got a really busy job. It's not like people are sitting around going, maybe I'll take the tour today if the salesperson is too busy. And so unless you really think through, back to your original point, like what does the sales department need to look like? Probably different for maybe even every community. But people do need to understand that all of the money that you spend investing in these in really great marketing is all for naught if there isn't anybody there to catch them. Yeah. And so I think you have to take a look at your CRM. How many people are sitting in there that no one has talked to? Why? Is it because you don't have a good salesperson? Maybe. You have a new salesperson and they're not quite maybe bold enough to get themselves right in the middle of everything just yet. Likely. It's probably you don't have enough manpower in order to make sure that customer needs are met. And that doesn't always mean more salespeople. Sometimes it just means salespeople doing different parts of the sales process. Doesn't mean you have to spend more money. Sometimes you just got to spend your money differently. But I do think that it's just going to get harder and harder out there. All senior living companies are pretty good senior living companies. Everybody is out there really trying hard to do the best they can. The competition with the boomers companies is only going to get harder. And I think the industry has done a good job figuring out that marketing front end, right? Like that, like I said earlier, and you called it the Jetsons. I love that. The Jetsons and the Flintstones. That makes perfect sense. But we've got to invest in what the sales structure should look like to make sure that our marketing dollars are actually going to pay off when we build relationships with prospective residents and their families.
Yeah. That's a great point. I was just looking at a client's CRM 2024 move-in data today. 69% had no referral source of any kind. 69% had other. So we don't even, you were spending all this money on marketing, and then you go into the CRM and see what sales team attributed the lead to. Unless it's documented automatically through a system integration, if you're blind to where 70% of your move-ins are coming from, how can you possibly make an informed decision about how to spend your marketing dollars?
Yes. Yes. I know. I used to love, Deb, I would love it when we would see, we'll use your same analogy there, 60, 70% are all coming from site sign and location.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great because that they do know where you are. And that's important. You do want to be on the A corner, right? That's important. But how do you build a sales and marketing community-based plan? I guess what you're going to do is get a bigger A-frame sign and put some balloons out every day.
Yeah.
That's going to be your marketing plan because you, quite frankly, you don't know enough, right? Yeah. You don't know enough about that journey before they got to you. That's going to help you to really understand where they are in the buying process. And it's like cold calling, right? But the customer's cold calling us instead of us cold calling someone else. But it is, I agree with you. I think anymore, so many of the leads, gosh, if I think back, I think probably a good 70% of all of the opportunities came either from the company's website or the paid aggregators, right? And so for the most part these days, right, you do have the here's how they got connected to us source. But even in that situation, we don't go deep enough to understand, like, how did they get connected to that source? And right now, people have always been a bit up in arms about the third party aggregators. Always, right? It's always, it costs too much, it's highway robbery, whatever, however you want to define that, right? But if we don't have a process of finding out where that customer was prior to them connecting with a third party aggregator, we can't interrupt the flow. All you know is X% of your leads are coming from ABC third aggregator. You can't build a marketing plan to get in front of the customer before they get there. And so it's easy to complain, right? It's easy to complain.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't know where to go because we haven't asked enough questions about how they even got there in order to try to inform our marketing teams. Maybe there should be a different maybe we need to aim that marketing engine someplace else so we can get to customers before they're getting to the third party aggregators. And I'll tell you something else to that as well. I did some virtual mystery shops probably a month and a half ago, and I did 5 of them. And I decided to go through a third party aggregator. So my partner, Jess, was on the ground. She was doing on the ground. I went through the third party aggregator. It probably took maybe, 10 minutes to get through the fill out a form. Somebody called me. And then they were going to they did a warm connection to the person who was going to help me. Okay, so that happened within 10 minutes. The person on the other end of that call scheduled all my tours for me, called me prior to every virtual tour that I was going to do to say, do you feel ready? Did they get back to you? Are you comfortable? Do you have any questions, anything that you want to talk about before you get on here? And called me an hour after the tour, the virtual tour, to find out how did it go? What did you like? What didn't you like? Are there other questions that you need answered from this? For 5 communities. Do you want to know how many people from those communities called me before the tour?
0.
This person was like riding shotgun all the way through the process and still calls me today.
Yeah.
Still calls me today. But that's right. Like we want to complain, right? We want to say, why do we have to pay those people? That's why we have to pay those people. Because they are staffed to do that. We're not. We're not. Their marketing, gazillion dollars of marketing dollars are in the places where people are looking before they're actually ready to commit to making a connection.
Right.
We're not. So I think from an industry perspective, right, we got to take a big step back and say, okay, how much of this is on us? How can we just be better? How can we be there when someone has the courage to connect with us? How can we be there in a way that shows them who we are as an organization and what they could expect if their mom moved in here with us? So I think until we get there on a more consistent basis, I think we've got a ways to go in putting the third party aggregators out of work because they're doing a lot of our work for us, in my personal opinion and in my experience.
And if they're doing it better, then you can't really blame them for their own success.
Yeah. How easy was that for me as a customer? I didn't have to make that was pretty easy for me.
That's
And
right.
so I do think, right, that the thing is that the benefit of actually talking to the community is you're talking to the people who are going to provide for you, right? You're talking to people who are not just brokering for
Mhm.
you. You're talking to people who are going to actually provide for you. You're going to get the inside feel of that community, which never can the person riding shotgun can't give you that. They can ask you good questions to help you decide what you want, but they can't give you that. And at the end of the day, it is so much better if, as we from the industry are talking to prospective customers, it's so much better if we're doing that. But in light of not being staffed necessarily in a way to provide that level of service, we are a bit reliant in a way that they're doing some of the work that we don't necessarily have time for. Yeah.
It sounds like these are all the problems that B Sales Consulting is trying to solve, right? Go in, consult, help create the right infrastructure, make sure you have the right resources, make sure you have the right sales team. If you don't, train them up, coach them up, level them up. Make plan is in alignment. I'm sure that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
Kelly, if people want to find out more about you and your company and order your book, what's
All right. Thank you, Debbie. The best way to find us is you can use either any of our names like Kelly, Jessica, or Bridget at kjbsalesconsulting.com. We do have a website, which is kjbconsulting.com. And the book you can find on Amazon. And it's been such a joy for me. It's been such a joy for me to write the book. It's a long process. For anybody who's thinking about it, I highly recommend it. It is a process. Took well over a year. And I just found a misspelled word today. I'm like, oh my God. But I found it. You guys will see it too if you read the book. But I think that what we really tried to do, Debbie, when you think back to the first thing that we were talking about, is I really wanted to create something that, as a community-based seller, like the material will speak to you, I hope. And there are really fun stories in there to say, yes, you too can create this kind of tailored experience. You too can let your curiosity allow you to show somebody what life will be like in your community, specifically for them and where they are and their needs. And there's practice drills for every one of the concepts in there. And it was really important to me to be able to not just say, do this. It was really important for me to say, here's what someone did. This is how you might apply that. And here's how you can practice it. Because you need to be ready and you need to practice. And I hope as people are reading through the book that it does say to them, oh, I get that. Oh, that makes sense to me. The stories are real. Didn't make them up. And so it really does point out, like, if someone can do what's in this book, you can do it too. And the lives that you'll impact will be memories that you will have for forever. I can remember so many of the sales that I closed. I can also remember the ones I didn't. But those are the people that you have changed their lives by doing a really great job as a salesperson. That is what we used to call the second paycheck. But that is, I think, why we are all here, right? We are all here to make sure that people have this chance to live out what is going to be likely the rest of their life in an environment where they have great care, of course, yummy food, of course, but they make friends. They make friends and they're involved and they're engaged and they get this second or third act to their life. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you asking about the book and I appreciate you asking me to be on the podcast. It's really been fun, Deb. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your senior living marketing perspectives with us, Kelly, and hopefully we'll see you at an upcoming conference.
I hope so. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.